Hello and welcome to Marketing and Margaritas. Today, Jade and I are doing one of our shorty soundbite episodes where we talk about FAQs, little tidbits and things we just want to share with you. Today's episode is about consistency in your print material.
Yes. So obviously consistency is what we're always trying to achieve in marketing. It's, part of being professional, reliable, trustworthy is that you're consistent in everything that you say and do. And that includes your printed material as well.
Yes. So that's not the look of it so much like as a design. We're actually talking about what you're printing on.
Correct. Yes. So today it's like, for example, if you were to have like a range of brochures, like one for each of your products, and one might be a gloss finish, one might have embossing, one could be a matte seller or whatever. Yeah. It's going to look really inconsistent unless you're doing that on purpose for some reason. Like
you might have different audiences. It might work well. But if 100%. You're presenting them all together and they look mismatched,
yeah, it doesn't look good. And it's even just the same thing as like for our clients, we will use the same, like say thickness and finish on, say, their business cards as we do on the cover of their capability statement.
Yeah.
So when those two things are given together, it just looks profesh.
So there's kind of like a rule of thumb almost, like certain items have a general thickness and finish that you would use for that purpose. But you can mix match that depending on what, how your business brands align what your look and feel is really.
Yeah, so and how you're going to use something too. Like, for example, like, if we do a flyer or whatever, someone like you, if you're going to do, say, a trifold, you don't want something really thick because
it won't fold
the angle. Yeah, exactly. It's going to look actually quite shoddy.
Yeah.
So you need something thinner for that. So yeah, it is also to suit the product itself as well.
So things to consider when you're getting print.
I love how you're looking at mine and not yours. Do you think that's your way of getting past that?
She makes fun of me because I feel uncomfortable looking at my notes.
Thank
you for pointing it out. No, it's wonderful. Anyway, so things to consider is to learn about stock. No, I'm not looking at your notes now. Thank you. Stop interrupting. Learning about stock thicknesses and finish. So GSM is how we measure paper weight. I don't know what it stands for. We'll probably have to ask our printer. No, that's just like GSM. Is
gram sheet material. I'm pretty sure that's not it.
Sounds right. Everyone will call it that now.
Yeah, that's the precedent. I've set the standard.
So yeah, it's measured in GSM. And then when we're talking about finishes, quite often we're looking at uncoated, gloss, or matte. There is a few more, and it's definitely worth creating a relationship with your printer to be able to dive into that area.
But it is, I think it's also like your brand tone and stuff sort of thing. Like if we're doing something corporate for someone, quite often I will get a matte cello finish because it's got that silky, smooth kind of feel to it. Whereas if you're doing something in the public domain and you want it to be a little bit flashy, doesn't sound like the right word.
But fun and shiny.
Then you go like a high gloss.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's also like where it's going to be seen and used and stuff too.
Absolutely. So to give you an idea of what GSM we're kind of looking at, the likes of a regular piece of printer paper is around 80 GSM. A nice, good, sturdy business card is around 420 GSM. So, if you're trying to think of the thicknesses, that's a good comparability of everyday stock. When you're choosing, we were talking about the purpose of an item. So a business card is 420. It's nice and thick because you're keeping it in your wallet or something like that. It needs to be durable.
Yes.
You don't want it to crinkle by the time the user gets it back to use
little
it for their
folded
purpose.
Corners and stuff.
Yeah, you don't want it looking ratty because that's representing your business.
100%.
It's not ideal. Something like an event flyer or a trifold brochure like we talked about, that's a bit thinner. Its lifespan might be shorter, so you don't need to go as thick.
So if you've got a flyer that's literally for an event that's happening in a couple of weeks and I don't know, you're like just handing them out or whatever like that, it doesn't need to be the Super Mac Daddy version or whatever. Like it can be something a bit lighter and stuff.
Yeah, they're not keeping it forever. Corporate profiles, you talked about that matte look and feel will generally go a thicker cover on them depending on how many pages you're going.
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of like if you've only got 8 pages, 4 of those are your cover.
Yeah.
So if you've got 4 one thickness and then the inside 4 a different thickness, it's probably not enough inside pages to warrant having 2 different thicknesses.
Yes. So
maybe you like that. Who knows?
So there is a rule of thumb almost for different content uses. So keep that in mind when you're choosing. Partnering with a printer for consistent results is quite valuable actually.
Yeah. 100%.
not just because you get to know them and you have that relationship and the trust, but because...
And then when you need something last minute, you can call them and be like, hey, I sent all that work away for the last 6 months.
And you love dealing with me.
Can I please get this afternoon? Not that we've ever done that.
Aside from that, by using the same printer, you're less likely to get variation in your color print.
That's it. Different printers are calibrated differently, just like different monitors are calibrated differently.
So you might be sending in your brand colors, but if you get it printed by 2 different people or 2 different machines, they might look completely different. And if you're putting those multiple items in front of your audience at the same time, that's not going to look great either.
Yeah, you're going to notice those variations.
100%. So yeah, reusing the same printer, creating that relationship, and having that consistent look is really valuable.
Cool. So what's our wrap-up tip for today, Lani?
Our wrap-up tip is once you've kind of learnt or got a feel for your different stock finishes and weights and stuff like that, is making sure you use that knowledge. So if you're getting something reprinted, make sure you request the same thing.
Sounds simple, but you can't expect the printers or whatever to do that for you.
You are not their only client.
Yeah, so you either need to ask them, specifically say it, or when you're putting your order in, ask specifically for that same thing to make sure that you've got that consistency.
If you're getting quotes from multiple printers because you don't have someone that you're using all the time.
Such a good point.
You've got the details of what you're asking for.
Yeah. So you can make sure that you're comparing apples with apples.
Yes.
Because one thing I've noticed with clients is we've had people come back and say, oh, I found these guys and they were so much cheaper. And I'm like, yeah, that's because that's a piece of shit stock. So
whoa.
It's if they've only quoted on 80 GSM and I'm quoting on 420 GSM.
Yeah, it's going to be a big price difference.
Yeah, there's a difference.
Yeah, that's a good point. If you're going outside the box, I've got a few wrap-up tips for this one. So if you're going outside the box with your printer because you want something that's different,
fun, quirky,
for the purpose
a direct mail or something.
Even pull-up banners or flags or something like that.
Something special.
Ask them if they've got a template for their artwork, because they'll have specific things that they need to put through their machines for getting it printed. That way you're supplying either your designer in-house or agency the right format for what the printer needs.
Rather than giving them something and them having to try and make it fit.
You
don't
want them stretching or manipulating your artwork that your designers have worked so hard to get right.
Because it won't come back the way you wanted.
No. And when in doubt, ask for a print sample. If you've got time, if it's something new, if you're not sure what you're wanting, ask for a print sample, whether they can give you just stock samples of stuff that they've done in the past, or if they've actually got time to run a print for you, that can be really valuable.
And especially for GSMs, for different thicknesses and different types and stuff, we have 50 million print samples at work. So it's okay, here's the gloss in a 150 and here it is in a 310.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, yeah, no, this is that's what I want for this one sort of thing. Or, oh, we want something a bit more organic and raw. And it's okay, well, here's a bunch of really natural finishes to choose from. So it's having those kind of little print samples on hand is really handy.
Absolutely. And actually feeling them makes a big difference to just guessing.
Yeah. Funnily enough.
Who would have thought? Anyway, so there's our tips for getting consistent print through your printers. Hopefully that's given you a lot to learn. Go look up GSM. I'm going to do it now to actually make sure Jade...
You're the one who did the agenda for this, so I'm surprised that wasn't part of the research.
Look, I'm just used to you having such infinite wisdom.
Oh, God. That really is a concern.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Marketing and Margaritas. Find more free marketing tips, tricks and laughs at rebelnation.com.au.